Hello and welcome back. In this video we're going to be making a 5-board bench or stool depending on your perspective. I'm using this scrap wood, so I'm kind of limited to it to get some dimensions out of, but this can be scaled up to any size. I start by roughing out these pieces to a rough width and length just on the table saw here. And then I take the pieces over to the joiner to get me one flat face. Referencing off the table, this cuts little bits at a time, giving you one flat face. And then take that face and put it against that back fence to allow me to get a flat edge 90 degrees to it. Now going through the planer here, I'm using the two side pieces that were too wide for the joiner. And the reason I'm able to put them through the planer is there's a pretty severe cup in them, as you can see there. So then I'm planing that top face, referencing off the cup on the bottom, and then I'm able to flip that cup over and put that face up to reference off the flat face that I made on the first pass, if that makes sense. It gets the piece pretty close enough for this, and with some sanding and some dedicated plane work you can get them perfectly flat without having to cut these pieces any narrower. Then I take it over to the table saw to cut off that final face there, that edge, and that gives me 4 flat faces on these boards. And I repeated that with all the stock. Now I'm getting a flat surface on that edge there so that I can pull a tape from there to get my final measurements. I repeat this on all the boards. Now I can mark my final lengths for all my pieces off that flat edge that I just made. Use a square to mark those lines and double check my measurements, so I can cut these pieces to their final length. Now I'm doing some layout for these 45-degree miter cuts that I have. A little bit of a design aesthetic. You can leave these straight if you'd like. But I'm just pulling an inch down from the top of the side runners and then putting a 45 in there. Gives it a little bit more of more depth to the look. Now cutting those just before the line so that I have a symmetric look on both sides of the piece. Now I'm marking here for the depth of the cuts that I'm going to do a little dado cut in there so that these side ridges are recessed. Now I'm marking the other side there as well, and you can see how this comes together in this shot here. I'm going to remove those little rectangles so that these side runners can fit in there to give it a lot more strength and stability. Making those cuts on the bandsaw there so I get a straight edge coming into that dado cut on the end. And I line each one up individually because the boards vary in thickness slightly. And I repeat this for both side pieces. I'm doing a rough sand here before I go any further, just so it's a little easier down the road. Laying out here for the bottom piece, I'm doing a little design rounded edge on the bottom. This isn't necessary, but it makes it a little sturdier and gives it more of a decorative look. And I just used some electrical tape to lay out that top circle there. So what's nice about these projects is you don't need anything specific. You can kind of use what objects you have around you to make little design choices like that. Now I link that circle with the 2 lines that I drew previously, and that gives me something to cut out on the bandsaw. You can see I originally tried to use a Forstner bit to start that, but I changed my mind at the last minute and decided just to do it all on the bandsaw. Do a bunch of relief cuts in here because this is quite a deep and tight turn. So doing it a little piece at a time here allows it to not bind up your blade, and it's a little safer to do. Now I clamp both pieces together, put them in the vise, and start hitting them with a rasp to sand out those rough edges there. In this process I go through 2 different grits or roughnesses of rasps. One's a little more coarse than the other. And then I follow it up with some sandpaper and go through the grits that way. That gets a relatively smooth surface and cleans up those edges. Now I'm doing some final assembly. On these runners here, I'm doing glue and screws for stability. Making sure I'm at a 90-degree there prior to putting that second screw in. And I jump to the other side to mark that center line, glue, drill, and screw. And I repeat this process on the other side of the bench. Just wanted to show this little detail here where I overcut this dado so then I come through with a hand plane to level that surface out so you don't have that ugly edge. Hand plane makes very short work of small raised edges like that. Now I'm nailing on the top. I chose this over glue because there's a lot of expansion and contraction here. And as this was a humid summer day, there's going to be a lot of wood movement left in these boards. So using nails and no glue allows there to be some flexibility as the seasons change. And it kind of gives it that old school look on the top. I decided not to finish this piece just as it's a test and meant to be outside. I do have plans available in the link below. And as always, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and comment below with the next project you'd like me to work on. Thank you.